are the weirdos in the circle.
Black is night, resteth from our sight. White as light, mighty hectate make it right.
I myself am strange and unusual.
It's time to cast a circle and welcome to the Coven podcast. I'm Sharon.
And this is Wendy. I hope everyone is having a great November. So remember, with the changing of the seasons, we should guard ourselves from any sickness. So get your flu shot and start working on your home remedy potions and use that granny magic.
Definitely. I am a fan of herbal teas and like essential oils personally.
Yes. And I use a lot of Vicks Vapor Rub.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I love that stuff.
I always just use it when I'm dyeing my hair so I don't like get it on my forehead. I don't actually ever use it for my throat like its intended purpose.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard of that idea. Mm-hmm. I'm going to use that now.
Yeah, if you're prone to like dyeing your ears, it's a helpful trick.
I have these huge kind of like elf ears, I feel like. So, yeah.
So how was your Halloween?
It was okay. We didn't really do anything that I would normally do, but I did get all dressed up in my witch costume. And, well, I shouldn't say costume. I just got in my witch attire.
Right.
So I had my hat and my dress, and I meditated and did some tarot readings and just connected with my stones. It was kind of nice.
Yeah, I did a big tarot reading like we talked about last time. I went ahead and did like one card for each month, so it kind of took me a while to go through. But it was an interesting process, and I enjoyed it. I ended up dressing up like Lydia, and it was a good balance of just like fun costume time, hanging out with friends, and then my altar time.
Nice. I feel bad. I totally missed your live video that you did. I didn't have any internet where I was at because I was in New Mexico visiting my daughter and grandbaby, so I didn't have a chance to have any issues. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like my first live video on Instagram. It was kind of scary, but then I was doing it with my friends, so that alleviated all stress. And we just kind of put on our makeup together, and that was kind of fun.
Nice. I love it. I did get to see the after picture, which you looked so adorable.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I realized that, like, with the wig, I couldn't wear the Lydia hat anymore, so I had to improvise and do, like, the Lydia little side ponytail. Or not side ponytail, but half ponytail.
Yes. That's so cool.
I enjoy that costume, so glad I could have a wig, like, just to cut up and give it the crazy triangle bangs.
Yeah. Did you watch any movies?
Yes, of course I watched movies. I ended up closing up my Halloween season with some pretty good movies. We watched Silver Bullet, which I haven't seen in a couple years, so I kind of forgot how good it was.
Yeah.
For anyone who hasn't heard of it, it's based off of like a Stephen King story, and this kid in a wheelchair that he calls a silver bullet, his uncle makes it for him, and he just gives it like a motor, so he's always zooming around town, and there's all these crazy deaths are happening, and it's a werewolf, and it's really cool. It's a little dated in the effects, but the story and the acting and the characters are all there, and I really enjoyed it.
And Corey Haim's in it.
That's right.
Yeah.
one of the better Corys.
Yeah, exactly.
I was talking about it with Wayne, and he was thinking that would be a good movie that they should remake. And I was a little hesitant at first, and I was like, you know what? That would be cool, because this werewolf is essentially just like a fuzzy head that he's wearing. It's not the best.
It's a man in a cheap costume.
Yeah. It was a really good story. And then on Halloween night, we watched The Thing, which is another great special effects. I love it.
We ended up watching Matilda. I know that's not really a Halloween movie, but it's, a witch movie in its own right. And I hadn't seen it in so long. And so it was
essentially Carrie for kids.
Yes, exactly. For me, it's like if I don't watch a movie and it's been more than 5 years, I don't really remember most of it. So like that one, I probably hadn't seen since my kids were little. So it was like watching a brand new movie.
Yeah, I think of the same. Like I watched it probably like 5 or 6 years ago, and one of the things I forgot about was how sweet her relationship is with Miss Bumblebee. Like it's so endearing.
Yes, it's so sweet. Mm-hmm. And then at nighttime we ended up watching. My daughter didn't have very many movies, but we ended up watching Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Which I laughed the whole time because I don't know what it is about the Nightmare on Elm Streets, but I don't know if it's because I don't take them seriously, but there's so much comedy in it for me. So it was like every turn I'm like not scared, but I'm just laughing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I've seen that one, but I can't remember anything. Isn't it the actress? She's like that blonde actress.
Patricia Arquette.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
So I think I've seen that movie a long time ago, but I really don't remember anything about it.
Right.
That's pretty much all I did on Halloween was watch movies. I watched Hocus Pocus, and then I watched the Elvira movie for the first time, and it was actually really cute.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I've like recently fell in love with Elvira now that I'm kind of old enough to appreciate her. Like, she's so witty, and like she steals every scene she's in. She never takes herself too seriously, and she has like the greatest puns, and she's just super cute and funny. And I found it on YouTube, and like the whole premise is she has this aunt who was a witch who dies, and she has an evil uncle who's trying to steal like the aunt's grimoire, I believe, to get power. So Elvira inherits the witch's grimoire, her house, and she goes over there and like makes it over, and she just has a cute adventure. And it just ends with her in Las Vegas, like getting all this money from her aunt's inheritance, and her goal was to go to Vegas and put on a show and be a Vegas showgirl, and she just like dances around with little booby tassels. It's great. It's so cute.
That is. She looks pretty good for her age. I don't know if you've seen her recently, but
I have. Yes. Yeah. She does. She just retired Elvira officially. I think it was this year or last year.
Oh.
Which was a little sad because she was like, guys, I'm getting too old to do this, so I'm just going to retire myself gracefully before I get super old.
Yeah. You're like, keep the spirit alive. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, how cute.
And I have to say, I also watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch, or I should say The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I just finished it last night, and I really enjoyed it.
I'm so excited. I haven't started it yet since I was out of state. I mean, I was gone for a whole week, so I didn't really watch any TV because she doesn't have internet. But tell me, I know you can't really give any spoilers, but tell me.
Yeah, I'll do a non-spoilery kind of feel for it. So I like it. It's a lot, like, they did warn us that it was going to be dark, and I didn't take them seriously. I was like, whatever. This was supposed to be like a CW show. You're not going to go dark. They do. Okay. And there's going to be moments that you're like, oh, shit, they did that. They went there. And it's interesting. I don't know if it necessarily lends to the story, but the tone is there. It goes from like a campy place to like a dark place. And I do like Sabrina a lot. She is kind of political. She's really strong. She makes up her decisions for herself. She's not going to let like the Coven tell her what to do or let society tell her what to do. I really like that she questions everything and she finds things out like for herself, even if it's the hard way. And after doing all that research on the Salem witch trials, I was able to catch some like little Easter egg kind of names in there. Like the principal of her high school, his name is Principal Hawthorne, like Judge Hawthorne. And then one of her best friends is Susie Putnam. And I was like, oh yeah, my gosh.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like little things like that. And if you're a horror fan, which I know you are,
yes,
they reference it in like subtle ways, like movies. So there's a scene, I think it's like in the 3rd episode, where Harvey, the male character in the show, he's leaning in his bed with just dressed exactly like Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street with like that jersey crop top.
Nice.
And so I was like, oh my God, that's Johnny Depp's wardrobe. That's definitely an homage.
Yeah.
There's also a time where Sabrina herself is wearing like this sweater dress with a lacy little collar, a white lace collar, exactly like from Rosemary's Baby.
Nice.
So just on like my first watch through, I was picking up on all these little like hints, and they were real quick. So I know that there are tons more I missed. So I really want to watch the show again. It's like definitely something you don't want to just watch once, because there's a lot of like dialogue, there's a lot of cool magical stuff hidden in there, and the lighting is really great. I really love the sets, and I like it a lot. It's in no means any representation of like witchcraft, I would say, because it's really dark. But other than that, it's really cool, and they do some things, like there was some binding magic and scrying, and like all the magic stuff is just really cool. But just take in mind, it's like a horror take on magic. So it's like The Craft, but darker.
So do you know, was Melissa Joan Hart a part of this at all? Like, did she have any...
No.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if she did any directing or anything like that.
No, actually, no. So for any of the listeners who don't know, like Sabrina came about in the Archie comic books. Like she just started there, and she did get her TV show with Melissa Joan Hart, and then after that, in like 2014, the comic book came out. It was The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and the guy who wrote that is the guy who's directing this show. So it's an adaptation of that direct comic. It's only like 8 issues. I only started it. I got like to the 3rd issue, and from what I can tell, it follows it loosely, and like the characters are still there, like the settings are still the same, and the feel's very much the same, but the events that transpire are a little different. But it's pretty cool, and I did watch some YouTube clips of the original Sabrina cast, like watching the new show and their reactions, and they were all like screaming and freaking out about how dark it got.
It's funny because in anticipation of this TV show coming out, I actually watched the original Sabrina TV show the week before I left for vacation, and so it was like, I couldn't remember how many Easter eggs were in that one even. Like, they talk a lot about the Salem witch trials, and they even visited Salem, Massachusetts in one of the episodes, and how much was really based on all the information that we found. It was really cool.
Ah, that is really cool.
Yeah.
I don't remember that show as much, but they were both really good, and they're both different. I do notice, like we've talked about before, like, this is the season of the witch. Witches are in right now, and it's so great to have TV shows coming out about them, and I just want more.
Right. I started watching the new Charmed, and at first I was a little leery too, but I do have to say I'm excited about this one. Remember in the original series, there was so much sexism and so much, based on what the sisters looked like and what they were wearing. Because Aaron Spelling really liked to do that to the girls that were in his TV shows. So now on this one, it's not about objectifying. It's more about the witches. So I really like that aspect of that.
I love Phoebe, but some of her tops got ridiculous.
Yeah, but that was because that's what they made her do. Her character didn't need that. So, but this
Piper
is like,
was the only one who wouldn't really show skin.
Right. But I think that in this new one, it's more about the sisters, and it's totally different sisters, different situations. So it's interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going. So we'll see.
I'll have to give that one a shot. I haven't had a chance to watch that one.
Right. So I do have one little tale before we move on. While visiting my daughter, had an experience with a ghost, and I kind of did a little bit of research on New Mexico. I know that New Mexico, the section that she's in was Alamogordo, which is probably about an hour and a half away from El Paso, Texas, so close to the border. In fact, I saw Border Patrol on all sides of this town, which is totally crazy to me because I'm not used to seeing that here in Oregon. So it was a different environment. But a lot has happened in these little towns because you got to remember that before Americans came, there were all these Indians. So for years, there's been all of this turmoil on this land in this desert area. And so the house that she lives in was haunted. And I didn't know that. She didn't say anything to me before we got there. But when I did get there, I did feel an immediate presence, and I started feeling this negative energy. My whole mood changed. I had my hair pulled while I was taking a shower, which was really scary.
That is so scary.
It is very scary. I was vacuuming in my granddaughter's room, and something came up right next to me and growled in my ear. The lights flickered during that time, so I know that it was an energy. Now, mind you, I've never had anything like this happen to me before. I've dealt with energy. I've dealt with negative energy, but not this kind of negative energy. And it literally just feeds on people. This negative energy, anything negative that you may have in the back of your mind, it to me, it felt like it was trying to bring out all of that negativeness. So I started feeling negative. And so I recently had my dog pass away before I went on this trip. And so I was already feeling kind of sad, and it pulled on that sadness and made me even more sad. It made it feel like it made me feel like I didn't have control of my emotions. And I didn't want to leave the house. But when I did leave the house, if I was gone for any period of time, then I started feeling more like myself. So I went through, I got some stones, I blessed them, I put the stones out. I ended up on Halloween day on Samhain, I ended up doing a full cleanse of the house because I was the only one there. So I went through room to room, Oh
my gosh, I didn't even think about the fact that you were there during Samhain when the veil is the thinnest. So these things are at their peak.
Yeah, it was totally peak. So, I tried to push it out. But I can tell you that I never was successful in making it leave because I felt like it was attached to my daughter. Mm-hmm. So hopefully she'll be able to get rid of that on her own. But it was definitely something that I've never seen anything like it before in my life.
Yeah, that is definitely scary. Hopefully some stones and some saging can help. And I'm sure you gave her...
Yes, I gave her some good advice. So, but if anybody else out there has anything negative like that that's there all the time, please don't be afraid to call out to us to ask for some help, and we'll do what we can to help you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in case you missed it, episode 2 of our podcast does go into detail about house cleansings, but of course, if you have specifics you want to share with us, we can help you, or I should say Wendy can help you narrow that down even more and give you solutions.
Yeah. And, don't be afraid to reach out. You can private message us or even email us. We'll give our email out at the end of the episode like we usually do. So, reach out.
And actually, I want to say thanks to the listeners who have given us emails and comments. We started getting some feedback a little bit more, and we've got our first milestone on Instagram with 100 followers. So thanks so much, guys. Yes. We love hearing from you, and it's awesome to get some suggestions. So we're going to try to start answering those in the next podcast or two. So keep the suggestions coming. If there's anything you want us to research, we'd love to tackle that for you.
Yes. And a big thank you to our listener in Australia. I'm super excited that you've given us some great feedback, and
I'm glad we made it all the way down there.
Yes, I know. I know I did some searching today just to kind of check and see where our stats are at. And we even had some listeners in France and over in England and Ireland. So hi, you guys.
That's awesome.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks so much, listeners. So we are going to move on, I think, to our next section.
Okay, so this week we're going to delve into the Roswell Incident. I fully believe in aliens, and I love to think outside of the box, so I'm really excited to kind of share some of the things that we found and didn't find in this research. But before we get into uncovering our Roswell conspiracies, Sharon and I are going to discuss what it's like to be an empathic Pisces.
For anyone who's not too familiar with that zodiac sign of a Pisces, we are a water sign. We're known for being super compassionate, sensitive, very emotional. We feel really deeply, and our sign is said to be one of the more intuitive ones, being that we're in the 12th house of the zodiac. And so being an empath and a Pisces kind of goes hand in hand, and I think it's like super common. But I wanted to find what an empath is and what the difference between empath and empathetic would be. So an empathetic person is someone who can understand someone else and share their feelings and just like empathize with them when they're telling them, a sad story, basically see where they're coming from. And an empathic person actually takes things a step further with these like extrasensory abilities, and they feel the exact emotions the person's feeling. They can feel their pain that they're going through. So it's more than just feeling kinship to their pain, but actually feeling their pain and absorbing it. So it's really intense. I thought I was empathic, but then when I started researching it, I realized maybe I'm just more on the empathetic side. So here are some ways you can tell if you might be an empath or a highly sensitive person. You might be an empath if you've been labeled as overly sensitive, shy, or introverted. You might frequently get overwhelmed or anxious. You absorb other people's emotions like a sponge, and you can carry them on as your own. And when someone close to you is physically ill, you can actually feel their physical pains that are in their body happening in yours. As an empath, you're going to find solitude immensely refreshing, and you even require it to recharge, which is something I definitely can relate to. I love being a little hobbit, and I just need my me time.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Witnessing violence or cruelty is unbearable to you. You're going to be a good listener if you're an empath. Animals and children are also attached to you. And you're a caring and nurturing by nature, can't stand conflict, and crowded places are very overwhelming for you as an empath, and you're going to prefer one-on-one interactions or just small groups rather than like large gatherings. So I don't know if that matches with any of your personality, but I feel like all of those kind of sum up me as Yeah.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah. I found that list online and I was like, yeah, all of that, pretty much.
Yep, all of it.
I was even able to uncover like different types of empaths, which I had never really discovered before, and labeling them and figure out what they all were was really interesting. So I kind of want to break down the different ones I was able to research, and then I want to know, just let me know which ones you have or what you think on that.
Okay, we can definitely do that.
Awesome. So the first one I read was called the claircognizant empath, and often this type of empath will just know when something is right or not right to do, and when someone is lying or hiding something.
Yes, I can do this quite often. It's very overwhelming to be able to, because you want to believe the best in people, you know what I mean? But then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I know that you're hiding something, and they're like, what? Are you inside my head? I'm like, no, I can just tell.
Yeah, I wonder how often that would happen. Like, just kind of depends on the people you have to be around. I imagine in the office, that's a hard place to be.
It can be really hard, yeah. Especially, if you're working at a counter and someone's coming in to ask you for something and you know that they're lying about the situation. Yeah.
I'm sure it comes in handy, or do you think it's more just a burden to know?
I feel like it's a burden to know because I know in certain professions you can't just call them out. You can't just be like, liar,
Right. Yeah. The other one I found was a physically receptive empath, and it said that many empaths are physically receptive to other people's illnesses and bodily pains, like we mentioned earlier, and that it said that this is a useful skill to use for actually healing other people. So I wasn't really sure how those two connected and what that's like.
Yeah, it's very nice. So I know that I do have this, and this one I actually like being able to have because if somebody's sick, I can use my Reiki abilities to try to heal them. And I'm pretty successful at healing people with my hands. So I really enjoy having this ability, except for the part where sometimes I don't know if I'm sick or somebody else is sick. So
yeah.
That part kind of sucks, but it's like, I'll start feeling like I'm sick and then I realize who I'm around and I'm like, hey, are you feeling this way? Do you need me to help you? So it takes a while to hone this ability, but definitely if somebody has that, if you have any questions, please make sure to message us and we can help you in any way we can.
So when you're around someone, let's say they have arthritis and their knees are hurting, do your knees start to hurt?
Yes. And then I'm like, oh, do I have that? Because there's been a lot of times where I've been around older people and I'll start to have breathing issues. And I'm like, well, is this my asthma acting up or do I actually have breathing issues? But by the time I leave that person after a half an hour or 45 minutes goes by, I'm not having those issues anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah. Or maybe I'll get a headache, but it's not really my headache. It's somebody else's.
Mm-hmm. That would be exhausting.
It can be. Yeah. It's exhausting being an empath.
Yeah. And Reiki is something I've been curious to learn how to do. I would love to be able to heal people.
Yeah. I think that everybody has the ability to learn how to do this skill. It's really just using your own energy and the energy of the universe to heal somebody else's energy. And so I do have a good story I was hoping to save for another time, but I'll talk about it just briefly, that my daughter was born with severe scoliosis. She used to have to wear this brace in her back and it was never successful. They said one day she'd probably have to walk with a cane. And then I just, for months, when she was a teenager, I performed Reiki on her. And then recently she hurt herself at work, went in, and her back was straight. So I'm saying that this stuff really works, but you have to use your energy to heal the other person's energy.
That's pretty incredible that you have a firsthand experience of seeing it work on your daughter. And so it's just this, I guess, channel of universal energy that you're tapping into.
Yes, I think so. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like you have to be kind of grounded in order to do it. So, grounded in your surroundings and kind of at one, so to speak, with the universe and nature. And
yeah, definitely. I think you would have to be rooted in yourself before you could help another person.
Yeah.
So we should definitely do an episode on Reiki
Yeah.
Or
I would love
Reiki.
to. Yeah. I always call it Reiki, but I'm not really sure if that's how it's pronounced.
I was like, that's why I don't know which one. So the next kind of empath that I thought was interesting was a fauna empath. And this type of empath can hear and feel and interact with animals, which sounds adorable. I wish I could do.
I don't have this one. It would be adorable to do, though.
Yeah, I want to be like Eliza Thornberry and talk to the animals.
Yeah. I think that maybe I don't have this because I am a Pisces. So I can interact with water. And maybe I could interact with fish because I have had an interaction with fish before when I was younger, but it's not something
There has
I
to be a
seek
type.
out. Yeah.
There has to be an aquatic empath. I just didn't find it.
Yeah.
There is a flora empath, and this type of empath can communicate with plants, so being able to receive physical and emotional signals through them, like through touch, which sounds also useful for any kind of gardener. And then there's a geomantic empath, and it said they can read energy and signals transmitted by the earth, and many are able to feel and predict natural disasters before they even occur.
So I don't have the flora one. In fact, I kill plants, unfortunately. I just have this ability to repel plants. But geomantic empath, I do have that to a certain extent. So I do know that if a disaster is big enough, I will feel it before it happens or as it's occurring if it's somewhere else.
Which is insane. Like, how does that happen? What do you feel?
I usually go into almost this trance-like thing where, like, I can feel my body. Like, let's say it's an earthquake. I can feel my body shaking, and I have to look at my surroundings around me to tell, am I in the middle of an earthquake? Which usually doesn't happen in my area where I live. So I'm just like, okay, no, I'm not in an earthquake, but I can still feel it. And then I'll usually hear people screaming. So that's an indication to me that, it's somewhere else. And so usually I can look that information up later on to find out that it's true. I also am really connected with the earth. So I can sometimes, if I'm really sitting there, I can feel what the earth is what kind of signals the earth is putting off. So I can feel the earth spinning and then use that energy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This next one I know you have, which is the medium empath. This type of empath can see, hear, feel spirits, and usually from deceased individuals.
Yes, definitely have that one.
Which is interesting because I just thought that being a medium was its own thing. I didn't think it was linked to empath abilities.
Yeah, until we started doing this research, I thought it was its own thing too. So
yeah.
I'm excited to know that. Yeah, I was like, oh, so I'm really just an empath. That's all I am. Which is a huge deal in itself.
It is. And you can have all these different branches, which is awesome.
Right.
And this skill you've had, I'd say, your whole life?
Yeah, my whole life I was born with it. So my mom has this story from when I was younger about how she heard me, I was crying, and she went to come check on me. But then she saw that I was just laughing. And apparently all of a sudden, all of my stuffed animals had been moved into my crib. And so she thinks that because her mom had recently passed away, there's a possibility that my grandma that I had only met once when I was first born potentially put those in my crib to make me feel better. But she
that
said,
is really cool.
Yeah, but it's pretty much ever since then.
Or you're Matilda.
Yeah, or I'm Matilda. I'm not really sure.
There's a psychometric empath. This manifests itself as the ability to receive information, energy, and impressions from physical objects like photographs, clothing, jewelry, utensils. And you know what? This is one thing I actually do feel sometimes when I pick up other people's like belongings. I can get like a different sense of energy and a different tingle, even from like touching my pets and things like that.
See, you are an empath. You just didn't realize it.
I guess so, yeah, because I do receive energy like that. And that's something that I started opening up when I started doing witchcraft, because a lot of like Scott Cunningham's work will talk about the different types of power. You can manifest your own like energy bubbles in your hand by like in the beginning you rub your hands together a lot just to get that energy ball kind of going, and you'll just imagine that ball of energy between your palms. So I would start with stuff like that, and now it's just kind of evolved to where if I pick up something that's like another person's, like I had this coworker, her ring was on the desk, I picked up, and there was just so much energy on there. I was like, I don't like this. I gotta put this down. Like, this isn't my energy.
Yeah. Do you think that you could see something besides just feel Or I should say, besides just feeling, do you think you could get images if you honed that ability?
I don't know, because, I guess this one does say you receive information, and I can barely decipher what the energy means aside from, like, just kind of tingles. And usually because it feels foreign, I don't like it, and I just put it down. Like, I don't dwell on it. So I don't know what could come of that.
I think that you probably could, because I can do this one too. And I know that initially it was only just a vibration that I would feel. But then as I started getting older, I started honing into it more. And and so I feel like now, I mean, not with everything, but now it's like, even when I go to pick out rocks, I know which ones to choose because I can feel the energy off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you recommend honing that?
So a lot of meditation, and maybe get a few objects, and bring them home from like a thrift store or something. But make sure to tell any spirits once you're done that they can't stay. But you can try to just get the actual memory of the object. So you would feel it in your hand. And it's kind of like, it's like you're thinking of it as a living organism. So that living organism is passing its memory onto you. So you can feel the vibration from the touch in your hand and feel that all the way up into your brain until you start actually seeing pictures in your mind. That's how I do it. I'm not saying that's how everybody should do it, because you have to do what feels best for you, but that's how I do it.
I definitely will be open to trying this when I find the right object. That would be cool if I found like a neat jewelry or something like that I could just wear and kind of like focus on.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. I'm gonna try to hone that some more.
Yes, do it.
The next one on the list was the precognitive empath, and this is a type of empath that can feel the occurrence of an event or situation before it actually happens, and this can manifest itself in dreams or physical and emotional sensations, like for instance dread, anxiety, or excitement.
Yeah, I can have this one too sometimes. It doesn't happen as often as it used to, which is good, because this one can be kind of overwhelming. It's just that I know these events usually come to me in dreams. It's really unnerving when it happens during the daytime. So if it's in the daytime, I can be sitting there doing just a mundane task or doing some sort of task, and it's kind of like a vision comes into my head, and all of a sudden it's like I'm dreaming, but I'm not. Like I can see the events playing out.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So is it like a fuzzy image that comes to mind?
No, not all the time. It's literally like a dream. So I have very vivid dreams, like to the point where it almost seems like it's really happening. Mm-hmm. And so that's what it's like for me. It's like I tune out to whatever is happening and I go into that dream state almost.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, did you ever watch That's So Raven?
That's So Raven? Yes.
I'm like, is it like that?
Yeah, kind of like that.
I have to like just put everything into my own perspective so I can understand. I'm like, what would that be like?
Yes, kind of like that.
Was anything that was about your life that you could use to your benefit, or was it always big things that you had no idea what they were referencing until after it happens?
Yeah, it was always big stuff that I didn't know what was happening. Like one time, I'll give an example. So one time I was sitting at work and all of a sudden I just had this dread come over me, like something bad had happened to my husband. And then I started seeing the actual event in my mind that him and my son were driving down the street and they were in a horrible car accident and they didn't survive. So I messaged him and he said, well, we did survive, but we were almost in a horrible accident. He said, I don't know how, but my car went from almost rear-ending somebody in front of me to being next to them. He's like, I don't know how that happened, but we could have died in that car accident. So it was like stuff like that. And so I don't know if me seeing that vision was just a possible thing that could have happened, or if I was able to prevent it from happening just by thinking about it, or what. It was kind of like, not only did it happen, but I saw how my life would be if they hadn't survived.
That's so scary and emotional. You must have been
very
freaked
emotional.
out.
I was crying. I was at work and I had to stop what I was doing because I was just bawling uncontrollably.
Oh, wow. Your coworkers were like, what is her problem?
Yeah, they're like, oh my God. But I can't help it. When stuff like that happens, it's not like I can just stop it.
And is that a rare occurrence for you?
Yeah, it doesn't happen nearly as bad as it used to. I mean, this used to happen to me all the time. Every time I would sleep, I would dream in this kind of state. But it does not happen as often. So
I wonder if you had to close that channel just to give yourself less worry.
Yeah, I might have, because there's been points in my life where I didn't even want to have any of these, and so I had to ask the universe to take them away, which we're going to talk about that in this next one. So let's go on to this next.
Yes, the last one I found was the telepathic empath, and that they have the ability to accurately read a person's thoughts. So they're basically an X-Men, Jean Grey. Yeah.
So I was able to do this when I was younger, and by the time I was a teenager, I couldn't handle it anymore, and I asked for the universe to take it away because I could not keep going on like that. It makes you feel crazy.
How much are you hearing of other people's thoughts? Because I feel like the brain is an intense thing and processes a lot of things all at once. All of it?
Like all of it.
Of everyone around you?
Yes. So imagine being able to feel that, and then you have to go to the grocery store, and there's 100 people in the grocery store, and you're feeling everybody's thoughts that are in there, and feeling all of their emotions. And you're a child and don't even know how to process your own emotions.
Right. And have probably no label for these gifts or abilities, have no understanding, and can't even express them to another person or an adult.
Right. And I felt like I couldn't tell anybody about it anyways. So it was like...
And you probably couldn't have gotten... It wouldn't have been well received.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been well received. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You would have had to have like an exorcism.
Right. Yeah, because I do remember telling someone... I think I told my mom... It's not that she wouldn't have approved of any of this whatsoever. It's just that I think my dad wouldn't have approved. So her response to it was different. But it was like, I remember being in church and I was saying what the pastor was going to say before he said it. And my mom's like, what are you doing? You need to be quiet. And she's like, you need to be quiet. I was like, I can hear everything he's saying and feeling right now.
That's exactly how to act like the Omen child and freak everyone out, like in church.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty intense. I feel like we'll have to get more into those kind of memories and those abilities, because it's a lot.
It is. And I have to do a little bit of a time because I'm like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm crazy. But
we have to sprinkle it in.
Yeah, I have to sprinkle it in. Here's a little sauce.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, okay, so let's talk about ways that I help balance and recharge myself. And so, I mean, everything's going to be different for everybody. But for me, like I have to do a lot of meditation in order to recharge myself. I actually have 2 ways to do this besides meditation. One is going to the beach. I kid you not, the second that I see the ocean, there's like a switch that's flipped in my head that just makes everything all better. Just looking at the ocean.
Yeah, I mean, water, salt, all of that is very cleansing, spiritual. I think it's the ocean. To me, I think of it as like a divine feminine energy. Yes.
And the second place that I really love to go is at night, so I can go outside and look up at the stars. I don't care if it's 20 degrees outside. I will still go out and look up at the stars, because if I can't make it to the ocean, if I can't make it to the ocean, I need those stars to rain their beauty down on me.
I was always drawn to the stars and constellations and taking an astronomy class in like high school and getting a telescope. And now I live in a city where I can't see any damn stars. I'm like, there's a nice blink of an airplane.
Yeah, darn it.
Yeah,
that
but
sucks.
That's interesting. I never thought of that connection, but I do enjoy that process a lot of just gazing up at the heavens kind of thing and trying to see what constellations I could pick out.
Right. And, just it's different for everybody. So I'm sure there's people out there who divine with plants and animals. So hug them, touch them. I mean, I wouldn't suggest going to pet a bear, but
the most extreme example.
Yeah.
Don't do that, guys.
Just stuff within reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely meditate, spend some time alone. Take that time to sort through your thoughts, journal writing, all the things that make you feel good. Only you know what makes you feel good. And if you don't know that, then you don't know yourself yet. And you need to spend some time getting to know yourself.
Yeah. I think journaling is a great way to dump all the stuff that's going on in
Yes.
your head. And once you have it in writing, you can kind of either move past it or figure out what you want to focus on. And it's really,
Right.
it gives me clarity. I know that one
Right.
helps for me.
And you can go back and reread it and be like, wow, look how far I've come.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, dang, I went through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I came out ahead. So
If I
that's good.
die, I just want no one to read my diaries, please.
Just burn them. I'll go over to
Please.
your house and I'll take them all. I'll be like, nobody look at these.
There's this
gonna
really
burn them.
great like Adventure Time quote, like this Marceline character. She's like, Finn, if I die, burn my diaries. And she's like about to get killed because she's a vampire going to be in the sun. And I was like, that's her one thought. It was like, destroy my diaries.
That's what I'll do for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Just stay out of my head, guys. It's weird.
Yeah.
So empaths and aliens, they're pretty much the same thing.
Yes,
Weirdos.
they are. I mean, they're all talking with their brains, right?
Yes. So we should definitely move on to our main topic today. We wanted to go back in alien history to the Roswell Incident, which is super infamous, and we all have like these notions of aliens crashing, and it sparked UFOologists' imaginations for years. It's been shrouded in so many complex conspiracy theories and involving extraterrestrial UFO crashes. The recovery of alien bodies were said to be held in top secret government facilities. It's all just really crazy, and then when we looked into it, we got more logical explanations than we were hoping for.
Right.
And this all started in like the summer of 1947 when there were a stream of UFO reports along with UFO crashes that were happening all over the U.S. So if you want to break down the history of that and take us away.
Yes. I will start, but I just have to say one thing. So to our listeners, we did record this episode once before and it didn't work for us properly. And my daughter implanted in my head that the reason why it didn't work was because we were being censored by the government.
Exactly.
So this time we're getting this message out.
Yeah, this is our second time going through this information, so hopefully we can still make it fun and entertaining.
Yes, I think we can. It's just that I had to put that out there. I was like, the government's censoring me, man.
They are.
Okay, so Roswell. It started around, well, I should say the Roswell Incident. This incident happened roughly around June 14th, 1947, just outside of Roswell, New Mexico. There was a foreman named Mac Brazel from the Foster Farm, and he saw some debris falling from the sky during a thunderstorm. So Mac, he worked on this farm. They didn't have electricity. He lived in this little shack. His family lived miles away in their actual home, but while he was at work, he lived on that farm and he took care of it as if it was his own. So that's basically what a farmhand does, just so you know. But about a week after he saw the debris falling from the sky, he ended up going and taking his family out to go search for the debris so that he could pick it up and take it back to the farm. So they put as much as they could in some boxes. They took it back. So then June 21st, a UFO sighting and death of a dog happened in Maury Island, Washington. So this was reported by two men. I'm not really going to too much depth on this one. Maybe at another time we'll talk about all the incidents that happened in Washington state, but this did happen to make it into the papers, which would have been all over the United States. So Mr. Brazel would have read this information once he actually started getting caught up on his news, once he got away from the farm. And then on June 24th, a UFO sighting happened in Mount Rainier, Washington. This was reported by a pilot who was from Idaho. So this report was spread all over the news for sure. And it was really reputable because the guy who gave the message was a pilot. And so he was well respected. And then July 5th, a UFO crashed in Circleville, Ohio. And this crash, the debris that they talk about is similar to the debris that we're going to talk about in a little bit. It's almost exact to a key of what they say they found in Roswell, New Mexico. And then around July 6th, Mac decided that he needed to, after reading about all of these UFO reports, that he needed to talk to the local sheriff. And so he went and told the local sheriff, hey, I found some stuff on my land. I think it's one of these UFO thingies. And so the sheriff said, you know what, I'm going to call my buddy over at the base in White Sands, and I'm going to get him to come out here and help us out with this information.
And I did actually read a book on this. It was written by Jesse Marcel Jr., and his father was Major Jesse Marcel, who was an intelligence officer. He specialized in like aircrafts, and so he was sent out to go to the farm and grab all the pieces and just kind of identify what it was. Marcel was convinced that the foreman Brazel stumbled upon the remains of like a UFO, like a flying saucer. He looked at the material and he could not recognize it from any kind of known aircraft or any kind of flying object known. So he told his group commander, who was the press officer on duty, that it looked like a flying saucer. And Marcel spent hours picking up the debris because it was just in a lot of tiny, small pieces all over, and it was just all over the place. So they spent like a better half of a day getting it all gathered. And according to his son's book, which I forgot the name of, I'll link it down though below. He took a box of this remains home into his kitchen just to show his son and his wife. Like, he wanted them to be a part of this crazy discovery, and he wanted them to take a look at it. So that he describes as it being a really lightweight, almost like thin foilish type material. He said it was thin like the stuff you would find inside of a cigarette carton, and that it was really lightweight. And on the inside of these long tubes, you could see this purple, shimmery, like hieroglyphics type designs in there. And that, you know, it was unlike anything he's ever seen before. And there weren't like any mechanical parts or wires or anything that made it look like an electronic device. And so later, after he takes it all back to the base, he was asked to to take some photos with the debris so they could, you know, start putting it in the papers and getting this out there. But when he was brought into the room where the supposed debris was, it was switched out with they just opened a weather balloon and put it on the floor. So it was nothing like the debris that he found. And they basically forced him to fake these photos, and he had no choice but to listen to them because he was like a good military man. He's going to listen to his superiors, and he had to take a vow to stay silent on the entire matter. And they just made him pose with it. And it's hilarious because the photo is actually in the book, and you can tell that Marcel is just like looking at the commanding officer like off frame, like, are you kidding me? Like, he has this look on his face that is just like so annoyed and genuine that I like that he didn't at least like smile with it. Like, you can tell he's upset. And so I thought it was a really interesting perspective on the debris. Like, he just couldn't say it was any kind of earthly device, basically.
Right. And I do have to say that material that you were talking about that was in the package that he said was like cigarettes, they did used to do that. They used to put foil on the cigarettes. It was this really thin thing. I don't remember when they stopped doing that, but it was really thin. But I have to say, in my research, I did find out that during that time period, they did make this nanotechnology type foil during that time, which we'll get into maybe a little bit later.
Yeah, and like when I found out that it was just like plastic and foil, I was so disappointed. I thought that we were going to find a UFO, like a flying disc saucer crash with like the whole flying components, not just bits of foil. Exactly.
And so, and that stuff that you were talking about is the same thing that I read that they found exactly in Circleville, Ohio. So July 7th, the military came out to the farm, what was it? Foster farm? Why am I calling it Foster? Yeah, it is the Foster farm.
Yeah.
Like the chicken. So they went out to Foster farm, and there were several plainclothes military there. And when they saw the debris that you were talking about, they were like, you know what, this is way too much for us to handle. So they ended up calling about 50 to 60 more personnel in to help them out. There were uniformed Air Force. There were other military present. They spent 3 days picking up all of the material and scanning the area for more. A large area was closed off to the public. You had to go through a checkpoint to even get onto the land. There were other parts of government there, but they weren't sure if they were CIA or FBI. I mean, these are all eyewitness accounts. So I read a lot of crazy things that you're like, is this real or is it not real? But there was no information to back the story up, so it was hard to tell what was real, what was not. But after the military left, everyone was told, supposedly from eyewitness accounts that I read, they were told not to speak to anyone about all of the information that was found. Life is business as usual, so don't talk about it. This is just something that happened. Let's stop. So then on July 8th, the Air Force reported they located a flying disc in the newspaper. And on July 8th, also in Circleville, Ohio, they found another disc-shaped crash. Then on July 9th, they redacted the information that they said. They said that last report that we talked about was not right. What we really found, you guys, was a weather balloon.
Right, which probably shook everyone who just the day before in their newspaper said flying saucer in Roswell.
Right, exactly. So all the people who lived in the area were like, what? This is bullcrap. But everybody else was like, well, the government's trustworthy, so let's just forget about this Roswell thing and move on with our lives. But the people in Roswell, it really shook them. Mm-hmm. They never stopped thinking about it. And I mean, as we know from that event forward, activity regarding UFOs increased. So remember, UFO can mean aliens, or it can mean just basically an unidentified flying object. This means we've never seen this object before. It doesn't necessarily mean it's aliens, but it could be aliens, you know. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to fast forward to the late 70s when people finally began to think there may have been a cover-up that happened in Roswell. No one really came out about what really happened, and there was no proof of a cover-up, but there was no proof that it was aliens either. So what did you find? You found something interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So in 1978, the National Enquirer is kind of what re-sparked this whole conspiracy theory. It reported this incorrect news article from the Roswell Daily Record. It went back and the original one before they redacted it about how saying there was a Roswell alien crash at the time. So UFO fans went nuts, and Stanton Friedman is a longtime UFO proponent, and he started interviewing everyone he could find who was still alive and who had been connected with the incident, and began constructing all sorts of these elaborate conspiracies. And he would just interview people who were friends of a friend who saw something, and just kind of a lot of not firsthand accounts or even like deathbed confessions, which are not really something you can take as fact. And so this kind of started the whole wheel of the UFOs landing and that kind of thing.
Dang. Well, then in the 80s, some documents were leaked discussing the alleged cover-up and revealing the Mystic 12. So what this means is there was this woman. She was a scientist. I feel really bad because I didn't write down her name. Even though we did all this research, I didn't write down her name. Anyways, she was a scientist. She was doing some research on alien technology. And then all of a sudden she gets this envelope that had been mailed to her from somewhere she wasn't sure. She opened it up and it was information about Majestic 12. It had pictures of supposed alien autopsies. It talked about us re-engineering alien technology to make it our own. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, UFO community went nuts. They were like, holy crap, this is all real. It was like, I wanted to know, do you guys fact check? Did anybody fact check this back then?
Right. I guess just pre-internet.
Yeah. Well, pre-internet, you're right. So it was basically, if somebody says it's real, it's real.
Yeah. Word of mouth and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1980 is also the year that the first conspiracy book about Roswell was published. It was called The Roswell Incident by Charles Berlitz and William Moore. And this was where like version 1 of the Roswell myth came out. And it's the one that's just basically that we all know, that I thought was what we were going to be researching today, was that an alien craft was flying over New Mexico and it was observing U.S. nuclear weapon activity, but crashed after being hit by lightning, killing the aliens on board. And, you know, that's when the government swoops in and you know, took them to some sort of medical base. And that's like the most famous tale you're going to find. And just depending on what version you're getting is going to be anywhere from like 3 to 12 alien bodies that were recovered, and it just gets more and more ridiculous as it goes on.
Right. And then remember how I was talking about those the pictures of the alien autopsy, those were done on Kodachrome slides, and they showed what appeared to be a body of an alien. So I read a lot of reports on this. It was typical back then that they would use test dummies in a weather balloon. I know that sounds so crazy because, that doesn't really look like an alien, but it could be that. But then when I was really researching it, I was like, I need to know, is this a valid slide? Where did they come up with this? Is it related to Roswell? Is it not related to Roswell? And then somebody said, these are not aliens. I'm going to take a picture for you and show you this. It was really a mummy in a museum in South America. It was the same exact thing.
I read that. Yeah, I think I read that, like, the whole slides thing, they were charging people admissions to look at them, and they were in some sort of museum kind of thing. So I think people, starting with these books, and the Inquirer and these slides, like, people are just making fake alien stuff to profit off the believers.
And that's sad. That's not what we want.
I know. Like, that's why we sound crazy when we say we believe in aliens, because there's just so much misinformation out there.
Right.
And the most popular, I would say, explanation for Roswell is really quite boring, and I'm going to get into that. So in the 1970s, Project Mogul was declassified, but it wasn't fully connected to Roswell until about 1994, when the normally secretive National Security Agency finally published an in-depth report refuting all claims of a conspiracy at the crash site. They just kind of wanted to clear it once and for all. So the U.S. military published these reports disclosing the true nature of the crashed object, which was a nuclear testing surveillance balloon from Project Mogul, which was a top-secret atomic espionage project at New Mexico's Alamogordo airfield that they called Project Mogul, and they used sturdy high-altitude balloons to carry these low-frequency sound sensors into the tropopause, which is a far-away part of the Earth's atmosphere that acts as a sound channel. So it's in that part of the atmosphere that sound waves can travel for thousands of miles without any kind of interference, much like the ocean. And so people that were working on it were like teams of scientists and oceanographers. And they believed that if they sent these microphones into that sound channel, they would be able to eavesdrop on nuclear tests as far away as the Soviet Union. So that's basically what they were doing. They're just trying to figure out what the Soviet Union was doing with nukes. So according to the U.S. military, the debris on the field outside Roswell actually belonged to the Project Mogul balloon, and it was the remains of a 700-foot-long string of neoprene balloons, radar reflectors for tracking, and sonic equipment that the scientists had launched into the Alamogordo base in June, and that had actually just ended up crashing in July of 1947. So because this project was so highly classified at the time, no one at the Roswell Army Airfield even knew that it existed, and they had no idea what to make of these objects that they had found. In fact, and some officials on the base were worried that the wreckage had come from Russia and was actually like a spy plane or a satellite. So that's why it ended up getting redacted the day after. They had to like hush it up and just say it was just a weather balloon. And that was a really flimsy story. It was like the simplest thing they could do without disclosing what Project Mogul was.
Right.
Yeah. So I kind of think that might be all it was.
Right. Well, my theory was a little bit differently. I came across this thing called Operation Paperclip, which sounds like it's nothing, but it really was something. So in 1947, that was the end of World War II. And during that time period, we took about 1,600 Germans from Germany after the war ended and brought them back to America. These people were scientists, engineers, tech-type people, and they were trying to do whatever they could, or America was, they were trying to use these people so that we could get to space quicker than any other country. So we wanted to land a man on the moon. We wanted to have more engineered so that we could get out in space, because out in space there are resources that we could use here on Earth. So in order to get the craft that they needed to go out into space, they had to do a lot of tests. And sometimes they used dummies, but then when it got to the point, they started using actual human beings. So yes, I could see that Project Mogul and Project Paperclip are valid theories, because yes, they'd want to cover that up. And why not use aliens? Because even though it's a far-fetched idea to them, it wasn't to us.
It gets people off your case, and it's kind of a nicer fantasy ideal of aliens crashing rather than people being forced into these weird experiments.
Right. And they didn't want, I mean, the government doesn't want other countries to know what's really going on. So a lot of times, even today, like we may think that we see a UFO, but yeah, it's manufactured craft that we've done today. But they're not letting us know what that craft is because they don't want our secrets out. Yeah. And I get that.
Yeah. Have you actually heard that theory that the government is going to come out with this alien invasion kind of tactic? It's going to be a fake alien invasion. This is like a conspiracy theory I'm seeing a lot on the internet. And it's just to try to like, it's just to try to bring universal, like, I don't know, like we're all going to come together to come against this evil alien force, which is basically the plot of The Watchmen. But they're saying that Trump is going to announce like an alien attack soon and it's going to be fake. So I'm kind of like interested to see if that plays out.
I would like to see that happen. I'd be like, yeah, sweet, I'm getting my tinfoil hat, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the autopsy footage that you were mentioning, I did find something interesting about that.
Okay.
So in 1995, that's when the autopsy footage came out, and it was just 17 minutes of this like grainy black and white footage, which appeared to be the autopsy. And this was something that again sparked the Roswell, conspiracy, and everyone thought it was real. So in 2017, so just last year, this filmmaker, and he's an ex-magician, Spiros Malarius, announced he was behind that whole footage and it was entirely fake. So he just kind of debunked this last year. And he, in an interview, he just kind of revealed the details about how he orchestrated this big hoax and how it came about in the first place. So the whole thing, it was a budget of $54,000 to make the video, and it was shot in his ex-girlfriend's house in London using like a foam alien dummy and actual animal organs. And
disgusting.
Totally disgusting. So I watched the video too, and it shows like a little small team of professionals dissecting the alien's body, opening them up and like removing the parts.
I've seen it.
Yeah, okay. And the guy, Spiros, he said that for him, the alien autopsy film was a challenge. He just wanted to know, like, could it be done? And as a magician, he wanted to create the biggest illusion ever performed on a global stage. So that's kind of where he was coming from. He just wanted to do like a big illusion, which I find to be messed up.
I know, I'm so sad.
Yeah.
Everything that we do, I'm like, is it real? Is it real? This one better be real, dang it.
Yeah, it's crazy. And again, they just sold it to these like news stations to make a buck. So it said that the contents of the alien brain were actually a combination of 3 sheep brains and a pig brain cast in gelatin, which is also gross. And he did say that, the intention behind the film was to entertain, and that there are a series of clues revealing that there's a hoax littered throughout the video, which I didn't actually find watching it. Apparently, there's the word video spelled in a hieroglyphic like letters on a piece of UFO wreckage that can be seen in the clip. So they're trying to like leave little Easter eggs for you.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I'm kind of leaning on the side that there were no aliens at this particular Roswell incident. How do you feel?
Yeah, sadly enough. I'm still, it
could be a cover-up, but,
I think it was some sort of cover-up. It could have been Project Mogul, for sure. I hope it wasn't Project Paperclip, because that one really scared me. When I read about that, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Do some research on that one, you guys, because that one, I didn't even say everything that they did during Project Paperclip, so you guys should look that one up.
It's a bit dark.
It's very dark.
Yeah.
I was like, why couldn't it just be aliens?
Yeah. And like, as far as the Project Mogul, like Jesse Marcel, he was saying that the pieces that he found was not a weather balloon or Project Mogul because there were no radio transmitters found, there were no microphones, there were no electrical components or anything like a weather balloon. So it could still be a cover-up, but I don't know. It's hazy.
Right. I just don't think it was an alien. Yeah, I don't think it was an alien cover-up. Do I think that it could be a combination of the two projects together? Sure.
Yeah.
I read that they were trying to, not every branch of government knew about these projects because it was a need-to-know basis. That's how the military is. If you need to know, you're going to know about it. And if you don't need to know, then it's too top secret for you and you don't have the clearance.
Right.
So that's just how it is.
And although there is no evidence that a UFO crash ever happened at Roswell, believers are going to firmly hold on to belief that one did, and that the truth has been concealed by, conspiracy. So all we can be sure of is that the government was hiding something. So was it Project Mogul? Was it Project Paperclips? Was it aliens? You know, you decide. You got to go out there and do that research for yourself.
Yes. Believe what you want to believe.
Mm-hmm. The truth is out there.
It is. You just have to be willing to look for it.
Mm-hmm. We're definitely going to keep tackling aliens. If you guys have incidences you know of or famous sightings you want us to tackle, let us know in the suggestions, comments, message us. Let us know what you want to hear.
Yes, and we will research the heck out of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, thank you for listening. So join us next Wednesday with our guest host, comedian, and Sharon's husband, Wayne. And we're going to get cryptid and talk about the legend of the Jersey Devils. So don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And check us out on our blog at cousinscoven.home.blog. We're also on YouTube, Spotify, and Stitcher, and a lot of other places that podcasts can be found. So send your questions or your paranormal experiences in to cousinscoven2@gmail.com.
May you find happiness in your heart, love for yourself, and joy in each other. Blessings to all.
We love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.